Thanks. This is cool.
Do I need to stay up here or can I go sit?
I think
Okay.
I know this might seem pretty strange. After all, this coming February, I will have been the musical director here at Temple Beth Shalom for another 25 years. And yet, I have not spoken formally to you in any service setting. So, what, after all this time, would have me stand here on perhaps one of the holiest days of the year, addressing the congregation I have been so humbled to serve? Well, to answer this question, we have to travel just a little further back in time. My father of blessed memory was born in Vienna, Austria in October of 1935. As you know, this was not the best time to be born a Jew in Austria or anywhere in Europe for that matter. Anti-Semitism was quickly growing out of control, and we were just a few months away from what we all know would turn this world upside down. As I was growing up, my father did not share many stories of what he saw as he lived in hiding. Escaped Nazi imprisonment by running with his parents from border to border, trying to stay one step ahead of the incoming doom that he and his family, friends, and neighbors were facing. Perhaps he didn't want to recall the horrors he was seeing. Perhaps the images he saw brought back such sadness that he dared not pass those visualizations on to me. Perhaps he just didn't want to remember. Just 2 years ago, almost to the day, my father passed away at the age of 85 years old, and with him, his memories, his testimonies of what happened all those years ago. Though I pleaded with him at times to share what happened, my father held the worst ones close to his heart, not wishing to pass the pain on to me. Now, as a father, I look at my son and I wonder, if I had gone through the same thing, would I have the courage and strength to recall the atrocities that I went through? And would I be able to share my own children, my own testimonies, and my hard life experiences? Friends, we are living in a time that we are seeing the youngest survivors of the worst time in our history not being able to share their testimonies anymore. These words of memory and survival instead are being taught through a few weeks of religious school curriculum, and if you're lucky, an educated public school teacher who has just a few hours to teach what beat our people down for years, destroying innocent worlds, tearing souls apart in attempts to break entire civilizations. This is not enough. Just this past May, I had the opportunity to chaperone, along with my friend Lizzie Fuchs, a group of amazing girls from Las Vegas on March of the Living. Together, we journeyed across the world to Poland, where we not just talked the talk, but we physically walked in the same footsteps as our families and those before us. From the moment we stepped off the plane, we knew we weren't at home anymore. The sky was gray, the energy fading. We surely weren't in Las Vegas. We were instantly hit with the amazing Jewish history that once thrived in Krakow, from ancient synagogues to Jewish shtetls and communities that were once the heartbeat of this land. During the week, we would visit other once Jewish populated areas of Poland, including Tarnow, Lublin, and Dąbrowski Tarnowska. However, our enjoyment of looking at this breathtaking beauty was short-lived, as we were quickly realizing what ultimately happened to our people in this same space. You see, these once flourishing communities quickly saw what hatred, evilness, and destruction can bring. Just as we got to Poland, the actual march for the March of the Living was taking place the following day. Waking up again on a cloudy day, the teens and I had a bit of anxiety as we took our hour bus ride to the front gates of Auschwitz. Here we were, our first concentration death camp for the week, and our boots were walking in the same mud and dirt paths as our fallen brothers and sisters. We toured different rooms, cells, and saw images you only hear about in movies. The wind was blowing through each crevice, and we could feel just a bit of the darkness that happened in this horrid place. Soon later, all of the other groups on the March of the Living came together for a march like no other. I will try to describe it, but like a lot of this adventure, you can only feel it if you're there. Thousands and thousands of teens from all over the world filled in the pathways that fed through Auschwitz. In an attempt to take a photo, I was still unable to see the end of the group in any direction. Teens from England, Austria, France, Germany, Argentina, Mexico, China, together with Holocaust survivors, political leaders, celebrities, Jews, non-Jews. Literally thousands and thousands of people were standing side by side with Israeli flags, signs of hope and love, vowing that the kinds of horrors that our people went through just over 80 years ago will never happen again. This is a sight that I have engraved in my memory forever. To see all of these teens from all over the world filling the space that once took the lives of so many people. It not only gives you hope, but it also lets me know that as long as we keep educating our children, the Jewish people will have a strong and bright future. You see, these teens went through a very difficult week in Poland, traveling to different death camps and burial sites, learning the shared fate that Poles had with Jews, and seeing the darkest part of our recent history. Their Jewish values came quickly into play as each one comforted the other in their own unique ways, lifting each other up with love and support as we walked with our heads high as proud Jews, prepared to bring what we had learned back home to our communities. However, the goal of the March of the Living is not just to educate about the past, but to prepare us for the future. At the end of this emotional week in Poland, the teens and I hopped an overnight flight to the land of milk and honey. This time, getting off the plane was a totally different experience. The teens read Baruchim Habaim as some of them celebrated their first time in Israel. This time, the sun was out, the birds were chirping, and the horns were honking as we made our way to our first stop, the beach. We watched the sunrise over the Mediterranean Sea and sang songs of love and friendship as the teens celebrated being in a land where they could feel comfortable being in their own skin. The week that followed was full of laughter, tikkun olam, and learning more about Israel's history and future. We remembered those who gave everything for Israel on Yom HaZikaron and watched as the light switched from mourning to celebration as we celebrated Yom HaAtzmaut, having a dance party on a boat ride in the Kinneret. We watched thousands of teens again come together in celebration and sing songs as planes did acrobatics above our heads as we marched our way to the Kotel. When all was said and done and our 2 weeks had come to an end, the teens were re-energized with their Jewish faith, educated a bit more on the recent history of our people, and overall had a new drive to assure the kind of horror our people went through will never happen again, to us or to anybody. These images and impressions they made of putting their feet on the ground will always live on in their memories, and these testimonies will hopefully, through compassion and understanding, be passed on to their children. As I mentioned a bit earlier, it was not necessarily so easy for survivors to share their story. When I was at Yad Vashem, something pushed me to review the Book of Names, a meticulous work that commemorates over 4.8 million men, women, and children's details that perished during the Shoah. After all, with such limited information passed on from my father, it was about time to see if any of my family's names were in this heartbreaking book that literally takes up an entire room. To my surprise, I found my great-grandfather's name, my father's grandfather, a man that I had never heard of. Next to his name was his date of birth, followed simply by place of death unknown. Now, obviously, I had known just a little bit of my dad's story of survival along with his parents, but I knew nothing about the next generation, his parents' parents. It wasn't until I was on the March of the Living that I learned of my great-grandfather's untimely passing, and now I'm stuck putting the pieces together myself of a family history I will never know. Not only will I not know these testimonies of tragedy, but even more, the stories of healing and perseverance. Abraham Joshua Heschel once wrote, "Morally speaking, there is no limit to the concern one must feel for the suffering of human beings. Indifference to evil is worse than evil itself, and in a free society, some are guilty, but all are responsible." All of us are responsible for ensuring that the history of our people went through doesn't become a story of death, but rather a story of survival. Not a memory to be forgotten, but a testimony of strength to be passed on from generation to generation. Together with Jewish Nevada, the Audrey Merkin Scholarship Fund, and many more, We make sure that no high school junior or senior will miss out on this life-changing 2-week educational adventure. I encourage you to talk about this now. If you are a survivor or second-generation survivor, I urge you to share your testimonies now. Ask your parents and your grandparents their life story now. If you are in high school, make sure that the March to the Living is on your radar now. It happens every May, so don't say I didn't give you enough time. There is an informational session coming up on October 22nd, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have. While there are many more memories of this adventure I would like to share, I hope that these past few minutes give you a glimpse into how important this life-changing adventure is for teens, adults, and all of us. Together, let's observe the commandment of teaching our children and making sure that our testimonies live on for generations to come.
Thank you, DJ.